Exploring and raiding structures in Minecraft is one of my favourite parts of the game, with many people easily sharing the same sentiment. A lot of the fun comes from finding a structure lost to time, raiding its contents, fighting the monstrous occupants, or even figuring out the possible lore and history behind each structure. But a lot of these structures are old, outdated, and boring. So for my Vanilla Plus mod, we'll be revamping some of these structures. If you have any ideas for suggestions on additions and or changes, please comment them below. If you enjoy the video, consider subscribing to keep up to date with my mod, Xatrix's Vanilla Plus. Let's start with these basic, boring cobblestone boxes, consisting of 3 mobs that are completely interchangeable: the zombie, skeleton, and spider. So all 3 will get their own unique design based on their mob. First, the zombie dungeon resembles a sort of decayed prison. Brewing stands and weakness potions are bonus loot, slightly hinting towards the zombie villager curing system. Not too much that it makes the igloo structure obsolete. The dual zombie spawners, if left for too long, will keep slowly building up a horde to defend the dungeon, eventually releasing slightly more powerful zombies from some of the cells. The skeleton dungeon is themed after a crypt, with empty entombment chambers, alluding to the necromantic lore within the Minecraft world. 2 spawners in this dungeon are embedded into the walls, with iron doors to slowly funnel the skeletons out, meaning the player must break into these spawner rooms to either destroy or disable the spawners. These areas have a few secrets to them, with lots of loot to offer alongside the spawners. The spider dungeon is a sort of miner's cabin that was overrun by spiders, with an immense amount of spawners and chests for a single dungeon of its size. If a player is to jump or fall down to the small caved-in chasm in the center of the room, the spiders from the spawners will quickly make their way out of their dens to attack and consume them, being another horde-based dungeon challenge. Jungle sewers are connected to the surface of the more open of the jungle biomes, sometimes being obscured by leaves and other plantations. These sewers introduce a new variant of zombie to the equation, the Overgrown. Overgrown are slightly slower than the average zombie and deal slightly less damage, but inflict a small amount of poison every hit. So without cheesing it, a different approach should be taken when dealing with massive hordes of them. Like how Drowned can drop copper and zombies dropping iron, sometimes when defeated, the Overgrown can drop jade, which will be a new common ore for specific biomes like the jungles. Overgrown will also be able to spawn in any jungle biomes, along with a less common spawn in lush caves. Jade, at the moment, can be found with its occurrence being similar to that of copper, but restricted within specific biomes like any jungle, badlands, lush caves, or certain mountainous biomes such as frozen peaks. They offer a new building material, but can also be used for magic-based crafting and related magic mechanics. The magic side has not been fully implemented yet, as we want them to fit into a specific Illager-related structure that we will reveal in the future. The jungle temple may sometimes be connected to these dungeons, located on top of it as an extension of sorts. Traps in the jungle temples are randomized, with multiple variants of the same jungle temple, all looking practically the same, with the trap changes being almost unnoticeable. So instead of knowing what block to break, grab the loot and leave, looting these will prove to be a bit more dangerous. That's not even including the fact that later down the line, the Jungle Walker may inhabit these temples later on. The Submerged Dungeon, along with Drowned, also includes a Guardian spawner, which if secured, can be turned into a sort of earlier game Guardian farm. Lots of copper can be found as loot, along with a guaranteed trident and conduit setup, but the amount of Guardians in Drowned that can pile up can be very dangerous. So it should be worth the reward, alongside the scarcity of this dungeon. A Drowned is locked behind bars holding a Nautilus shell, as the final needed one to complete the conduit, with the opposite cage containing a turtle for the heroic types to free. Stumbling into a frozen dungeon can sometimes surprise people, usually with the entrance being buried under clumps of powdered snow. Strays will be present within the small area, accompanied by Frostbitten, the ice variant of zombies. When hitting the player, they inflict slowness for 10 seconds, along with mining fatigue for 5 seconds. Meaning players can't just simply dig away in the midst of combat with an icy horde. The Frostbitten will also spawn in cold biomes, such as ice spikes, frozen peaks, and frozen caves, which will be shown in a later video. The Desert Temple seems almost barren, completely void of life, but hidden within one of the corners is a small bit of water. With further inspection, a single iron block can be seen under the water. Breaking this block reveals a small drop, which is made accessible by the water, into the second level of the temple. The Skullwrap is the winner of our previous mob vote. Congratulations, Skullwrap fans. And don't worry to the fans of the Bottom Feeder and the Jungle Walker, you will still get a chance to get your favorite mob into the mod earlier than anticipated. Within the center of the husk room is dripstone, indicating the correct code to open the room. If the player guesses wrong, then TNT is detonated under the main loot chest in the sequencing room. Now the Skullwrap. only generating in desert temples, drops binding wraps, which it'll eventually use as a ranged attack, being able to be fired out of a crossbow to entrap enemies for a few seconds. Apart from the rare head drop, there's an 80% chance the Skullwrap will drop the cursed Unk without looting, which can be used on a husk to mutate them into a new Skullwrap, if within a certain set of conditions. The head, as mentioned in the mob vote video, can be used to create the skeletal disguise, which makes undead mobs passive when worn, but removes the ability to interact with, destroy, and place blocks. I've tested the dungeons by letting friends of varying skill levels run through dungeons, with the following improvements being noted during the experience. The zombie dungeon is too small for our liking. The entire structure and formation are planned to be redone, to be semi-similar to the vanilla stronghold shape, but less confusing. The skeleton dungeon needs reaching the spawners to be a little more challenging, as players can just break the door and walk right in, destroying or disabling the spawner. The spider dungeon needs half the spawners, with one possibly being replaced by cave spiders, to variate the mobs, and less silverfish within the bottom area. The jungle temple may need room for mobs to complement the traps, with the possible separation from said traps, or to be integrated into them. The submerged dungeon needs more of a funnel for the mobs within, making it not as difficult with the immense slew of mobs. The frozen dungeon needs to be redone to be bigger and more complex, to spread out the loot chests and spawners. And the desert temple may need some sort of more obvious way into the second floor, with a more clear way to convey the puzzle, to access the main loot room, or a less restrictive way of securing the main loot. Overall, we might need a complete revamp of the lower floor of the desert temple. We could make more trap-based blocks, to add to the hazardous environment. But at the moment, I'm not too sure what, so feel free to suggest any in the comments. As you can see here with some of the animations, we want to give a little more life to our mobs that we add, in comparison to a lot of other vanilla mobs. Unlike the warden, sniffer, or frog, mobs like the pig, zombie, or recent mobs like the goat just swivel. We may change their animations in the future as well, to try and match the same life that the other mobs have. Alongside these mobs, which are only examples for the future, we've also added a few new block types, decorative blocks, and more. Granite, diorite, and andesite building blocks, case stone, which is created by smelting smooth stone, polished stone, smooth stone building blocks, and more to come, like tough, calcite, dripstone, and possibly even amethyst building blocks. As you may have seen, we also have more sandstone building blocks along with new prismarine blocks and dice bricks, which can be crafted by combining 2 blue ice with 2 packed ice. The urns from Minecraft dungeons have also been added, as decorative pieces, similar in size and shape to the decorative pots that appear in 1.20. These can be found in dungeons, acting as a sort of trophy for your adventures. So, after seeing some of these concept example structures, what do you think? What could we change? What else could we work on next? We do want to have input from you all as a community. You could help us by suggesting expansions and alterations on our concepts for the better as we go. We do have a few parts of the game in mind to update, like villages, caves, the nether, the end especially, and more. So watch for videos about them in the future. Thank you for watching. If you're new to the channel and want to follow and make an impact on our project, then stick around by subscribing. With more people supporting our project just by liking and subscribing, means we can put more effort and resources into making the project better. Check out our previous video on the mod where we revealed an actually balanced mob vote, with more votes to come later on. Or support us by just simply watching some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you in another video. But until then, have a good day or night.